I could do this all day. Hello Internet, my name is Bill, and this is Baldy Hacks. Crap, I'm gonna get sued. Good morning YouTube. So today I'm going to be working on an upgrade to my Bridgeport mill. I picked up Maxi Torque Right powered drawbar. Let's go ahead and see what I'm doing for setup to get this thing installed. One of the first things I've done, I went ahead and I tilted or knotted the head of the Bridgeport forward so that I could actually get easy access to the drawbar here. So let's go ahead and pull that guy out. Anybody that's not familiar with it, this is the part that goes through the Bridgeport, and it's actually what screws into a collet and then pulls it in tight so that it will grip onto whatever tool that you have being held in the collet. In the package, this is everything you get minus the attachment nipple, which I grabbed one of these out of my drawer, but we'll actually need it to go into the regulator. The only assembly I've done so far, I removed this plug and installed this. This was actually separate, came in a separate box. We look at the existing drawbar with the new one. It looks a little bit different. So let's go ahead and put it in and see what it looks like. According to the instructions, I don't know if you can see that here. I'll see if I can get a better picture. It should be, this shoulder should be approximately 50 thousandths below the surface of the bearing cover. Let's go take a look at that. Alright, now we're nice and close to the Bridgeport. This here is the bearing cover. You can pull these bolts, and then you can use these as lifting screws to pull this off to get access to the bearings. We're not going to be doing that, we don't need to. We have the new drawbar here. We'll go ahead and just slide it down in. That's sitting up a little bit high. This should be sitting about 50 thou below the edge here. Yeah, looking at the instructions here, it says that should be sitting 50 thou below. Let's see if we can figure out what's going on there. Something I didn't really notice. If I line these up here, and I look at this end down here, it's almost a ½ inch shorter. Maybe 3/8 shorter. Huh. I know they give me different drawbars. I better go double check, make sure this is the right one for my Bridgeport. I did some looking around online. There's possibly another spacer in here. Got my little magnetic reach tool here. Oh yeah, look at that. Yeah, but that's about the size for how much too short that new drawbar was. Just a little spacer down in there. Let's go ahead and try it out now. Alright, I wasn't sure because when I pulled that other drawbar out, it had a spacer just like this one on it. Alright, now that definitely sits down below that surface. Let's measure it and see how close it is to 50 thou. we're at about 85 thousandths. My guess is that's actually probably pretty good. I don't think that's a really critical 50 thousandths. But I will double check and see what the directions say. Alright, a little bit of finagling, a little bit of fixing. I did realize the quill wasn't actually all of the way up. I think that's where my 30 thou was. Now when I measure this, I seem to be getting right about 48 or so, 48 thousandths. I think that puts me right where I need to be. Alright, they provide a little packet of grease. I greased the threads and where that spacer sits. And I rubbed a little tiny bit up and down the entire length. And then it also says to grease the splines. So because this is not easy to get to once everything is installed, you'd actually have to, well, you could do it while the head was up. You have to pull all the screws and pull this piece off in order to get new grease into here. So I'll make sure it's well greased beforehand. So the directions show that there's actually a number of hole configurations that should line up with the different milling machines and how they're set up. So I should have 3 holes that line up, 1, 2, 3. Let's see how this goes. If you look at the different hole patterns, it looks like it's got straight across or 3 hole pattern. So we'll probably want this outlet filter to be in the back. So I'm going to use this guy up at the top, line him up that way. And then for the screws, they have the always important lock washer. You know, without these, machines always seem to fall apart. So always make sure your lock washer's on. I think the threads in this hole might be a little boogered up. Let me take a look at that. Alright, so that cleaned up all those threads. This one back here was the only one that was really bad. I'm guessing that comes from a little more than 35 years of banging on this thing to pop those loose and missing. You can see the top of this guy's been hit several times. No more though. Can never stress enough how important these split lock washers are. Make sure you put those on everything. There's been many studies showing that by omitting even just one of these, entire machines have completely fallen apart. That was really loud. Let me try. Oh, that kind of sucked. All right. Alright, that was just to get the head back in close to straight. I'll go ahead and do all the retramming and everything once all of this is in place. Alright, the next part is for mounting the on-off switch, which this here is my downfeed selector lever. And it utilizes these top 2 screws to mount the switch, so the switch will actually sit right here. Alright, if you're doing this, if you notice I was struggling getting that guy in there, there's actually two different sets of these socketed cap screws. I think one set's 1032 and one set's 1024. My Bridgeport's 1024, and I was trying to get the 1032 one in there. I just didn't notice it until I compared the threads with the original bolt. Luckily, I didn't get mad at it and just try to drive it in. Actually step back and think about it for a second. There, now it goes right in. But that just happened to be, I grabbed the correct one and put it in the back and the wrong one and tried to put it in the front. Alright, the only other piece to mount is the pressure regulator. Alright, next up is to hook up the air lines. So that'll be plumbing from here down to these guys. So looked all over, there's no markings on the actual piece itself which is in and out. You have to go by the instruction manual which has which one's in and out. So this guy should be in, going to in, out, going to out. You have a pretty good length of hose with it. Looks like going to be way more than plenty. That pushed in. It's going to be for the out, and it's going to need to be approximately that long. I'm coming from up here and going back behind. I'm going to feed it back behind. This is the VFD control wire that goes into the switch and then controls the VFD for forward and reverse. Alright, so I got out, one to the out. In. Luckily these connectors are pretty easy, nice to use. You just give them a good push and you'll feel it slide in and seat, and then it won't come out. If you need to pull it out, you can press this orange piece in and that releases it. I think we'll take just a little bit off of this one so that they run a little bit closer together, mostly just for looks. Start off about 3/4 of an inch. See if that was enough. Alright, there we go. Alright, so I moved the head around so that I can actually get to this area right here. I think is where I want to mount the little dryer.
Okay.
And oiler. I think if I bring it back far enough here, I'm just going into the casting. I could go here and it'd still be plenty thick enough. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick in the casting, but I just want to make sure I don't get into the pieces here. So I'm going to come back as far as I can right in this area. Alright, and that's where my holes will go. Alright. A little bit shorter, but they should be more than plenty long enough. Got about Alright, next up is a little piece of tube, go from here to here, with enough length that if I tilt, I may actually just do a loop. See what that looks like. And something like that. That way when I nod the head, there's plenty of slack here, and it's not going to pull this line tight. Alright, the only other piece that I had taken care of earlier was to put a T-junction into my airline here and run a separate hose off of it. So that I can actually plug that in. It's sitting about 80 psi. It's supposed to run at 90. So we'll go ahead and dial that up a little bit. The next piece, I need to actually fill this guy and prime all of the lines with some oil. Well, I went to move everything around and realized the camera battery was dead. Not sure what all we missed there, but I filled the oil reservoir for the air tool oil, and I primed all of the tools, or all of the air lines with a small amount of oil so that we're not running dry right off the bat. The regulator's been adjusted. It runs about 80 psi. Go ahead and plug it in. Right up to 80 psi. Everything's mounted, everything should be ready to go. The instructions say to run it really quickly, about a second at a time, just down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. See how it goes. Well, that seems pretty cool. We should try it with an actual tool. Got my little Jacob style chuck. And there it is. And there it's off. Oh, that's amazing. Alright, got that guy on there. Now I've got a bunch of work to do on my Bridgeport to get it all put back together. That's going to be a wrap on this piece. I am excited to actually start utilizing this. That will really change tools. Oh wait, no, it'll change the way I think about it when I utilize the Bridgeport. A lot of times, like anything, you start to get a little bit lazy and you're like, I don't want to change the tool. This will work. It's not ideal, but I go ahead and try to make a cut with the wrong tool. This, pulls that burden of changing the tool out. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe if you're really interested in the content. Mostly it's just me playing in the shop, doing random projects. A lot of times I'm just upgrading the tooling that I have, or building different parts, sometimes machine parts, a lot of times just movie props, and those types of things. So thanks for watching.